Good morning, everyone. I think I'll keep this very brief. I was very fortunate in working with a lot of professional people in the banking sector in Libya, and they made our task very easy, and hopefully we helped them in completing their tasks smoothly. Initially, we put in a number of scenarios on how the situation in Tripoli will be, from the very best scenario to the worst case scenario. And as Dr. Aref mentioned earlier, we were fortunate that things were far better than what we expected. So essentially, we were in touch with the key people in the central bank, both in Benghazi and in Tripoli. We managed to marry the two together, and they worked very well from day one. The issues we had was the liquidity issue in Tripoli and lack of banknotes. And I'd like to give special thanks to the Executive Office of Dr. Mahmoud Jibril and to the Libyan mission in New York, the UN mission, Dr. Ibrahim Debashi, for all their hard work in getting the Libyan banknotes released from the UK. Securing the premises was a major issue for us as well, and we worked closely with the local councils, with the Ministry of Interior in Libya to secure the local branch network and ensure that there is no major incidents at those premises. We also would like to give special thanks to the people who worked on re-establishing the banking system, the RTGS, and the special work done by Engineer Hussam in Tripoli to get the work done, and working with the IT team in the Central Bank of Libya. We're also engaged with the World Bank and the IMF on a number of fronts, initiated the discussions in Paris, and we're working with them to get them to come and assist the central bank in any issues. By far, the return to work has been rather smooth, and we were very, very happy and encouraged by what we saw. In terms of the retail banks, the banks opened their doors before Eid, which was a great achievement given the situation in Tripoli at the time. And people were able to withdraw up to the ceiling of 250 Libyan dinars, even though there was very little cash in the vaults in the central bank. But that went a long way in kickstarting the economy in Tripoli, and we saw people able to celebrate Eid, people able to go out and buy clothes for their kids and so on. And that enhanced the general feeling of comfort in Tripoli, and I think went a long way in helping people feel that there is stability coming back. Today, we have over 90% of the branches are up and running. Very little looting was reported, thanks to the participation of the local councils in securing these branches. People felt that this is part of their own national wealth, and they felt obliged to protect it. And I really like to applaud the spirit of the Libyan Thuwar and the general population at large. We saw very, very little theft and stealing. And even at one stage where there was actually looting in one of the branches of 330 Libyan dinars, within 24 hours, the money was returned to the branch. There was a sense of national pride that these things should not happen. And really, I'd like to go out and extend my thanks to all people who were involved. In terms of the stock market, obviously operation is suspended. We had discussions with them. They are using the time to relocate to new premises. They're using the time to get their IT system up and running. They have a process in terms of restarting trading in the foreseeable future, but that will be done in an orderly fashion to protect the assets of people and of companies. In terms of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, I'm sure you'll have some questions there. The situation there still remains that the assets are still frozen. The Board of Directors and Board of Trustees are also frozen. The person responsible for transitional period is Mr. Rafiq, and his work continues under the direction of the Executive Office. This is a continuation of the work he's been doing for the last 6 months. Mr. Layas still remains to be the chairman of the institution of the LIA, pending reconstitution of the board of the board of directors and the board of trustees. I'll take any questions later after they finish this. Wafiq Shater, WAFIK SHATER. And I'd like to invite Mr. Hatem Ghariani to talk about the international finance. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. There's really not much to say about the temporary finance mechanism, of which I'm a member of the steering committee, that you already don't know. It continues to serve its purpose with what funds it has, paying for salaries in the Nafusa Mountains and for shipments of fuel oil from Vitol, etc. However, I expect that, with the developments on the ground and the unfreezing of Libyan assets, it will play a more and more diminishing role in the coming future. What I would like to talk about is I accompanied the NTC on their first historic trip from Benghazi to Tripoli, and I can give you the perspective of the average person in Tripoli, because I didn't stay with them in the compounds or in the hotels. I stayed in the building where I have an apartment, so I stayed with the local people, and I suffered with them, the lack of water, the lack of electricity, the lack of security, and I have to say, hats off to the people of Tripoli for behaving in such a civilized manner, and also to the hard work that was done by my colleagues in the stabilization committees. Crime was at a very minimal, and I'm happy to say that within a week the police were operating, and we even took part in apprehending some looters who were pretending to be revolutionaries, wanting to knock down doors and go and loot people's apartments, and the police were functioning just fine, despite the fact that a week after the liberation of Tripoli, petrol was still in shortage, so a lot of them couldn't come back to work because they lived long distances out of town. So by the time I left, within 10 days, fuel was available, water was available, and food as well, which was in very limited supplies, was also coming in from the Tunisian border. So I just wanted to thank everybody, and I'd also like to announce that HSBC, my employer, will be resuming activities in Libya very shortly, which is again another sign of confidence in Libya and free Libya. Thank you very much. Hatem Ghariani. I'm head of global banking and markets for HSBC, and I'm also a member of the steering committee of the temporary finance mechanism.
Is that HSBC based in Libya?
HSBC Libya, but I'm also based here in Dubai.
Sorry, can you spell Ghariani?
Gheriani. Thank you very much.
Regarding the police, I would like to acknowledge and thank the great cooperation of Minister Ahmed Darat, the Minister of the Interior, and with his great cooperative spirit and the great help that we are receiving from the United Arab Emirates, the Ministry of the Interior is actually off to a very good start. We've held great meetings with Ian Martin and the UN team, and also meetings with the European Union and UK advisors on security. The United Arab Emirates has kindly donated over 100 police vehicles, 42 of which have already arrived by air in Tripoli and have been handed over to the Interior Ministry. They're also handing over 6,000 police uniforms for the Interior Ministry. This is great help. As you know, the Interior Ministry and the Ministry of Defense are the two pillars of security for Libya. The policy of the government and the stabilization team that has cooperated with the government has been basically to strengthen these ministries in order to make sure that the Libyan government as such is the one that's providing security to the people. We are really, really grateful to the United Arab Emirates for the help that they have provided and are continuing to provide, and we're holding various meetings with them on further help. There is a member of the stabilization team, Mr. Ashraf Nakou, who will be a coordinator on the ground with the Interior Ministry for all further help. We're also working very closely with the new higher or Supreme Committee for Security headed by Mr. Abdul Majid Saif al-Nasr that answers directly to Sheikh Mustafa Abdul Jalil, the head of the NTC. So thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge Dr. Najib Sarraj, who heads our, here in the embassy or in the consulate, heads the team for economics and commerce. And he's been holding various meetings with all sorts of UAE entities who are interested in helping with the reconstruction. I would just like to invite him to say a few words about UAE-Libya cooperation for the future.
Thank you, Dr. Aref. My name is Najib Al-Sarraj, A-L-S-E-R-R-A-G. I'm here working with the team in the Libyan consulate here, trying to provide comfort for the people who already been in Libya prior to the crisis and assure them that their investment is protected and their investment is safe and secure. Working with the stabilization team in various places, working with the local councils, trying to restore and rebuild Libya back on once again. Our role here at the embassy or in the council is really quickly is about 2 or 3 folds. One is to provide networking and sources for the local councils and the agencies in Libya in the local market here in the UAE. Second is to provide, and we receive lots of local companies here would like to take a plane and depart to Libya yesterday to get involved in the different sectors. And we've been telling them the priority right now is the essential services that the gentlemen have been talked about it in the healthcare, the education, and several services. But at the same time, our job is to provide the network and sources for all the people in Libya. Working with the essential and the priority in different sectors. The last role we're doing here is to receive several companies here who want to go back to Libya and to see their investments. And we are working with the local councils as well as with the stabilization team and several ministers when we've been asked to provide the latest on their investment and if any regulation or any laws coming up in the future. That's all I have, and later on I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I thank Dr. Sarraj for this brief comment. I would also like to acknowledge and express my gratitude to the team in the embassy and in the consulate here in Dubai. Mr. Abdul Hakim Abdullah, whose liaison with the Libyan community, has kept the community informed on what's happening. Mr. Nouri Al-Khzouri and then Mr. Muhammad Bousafita have been providing consular services, including renewals and authentications and so on, throughout this period. And I would like to thank their diligence. They're all volunteers and have been daily providing these services to the community. I would also like to acknowledge and thank Engineer Hassan Buhadi, who's the head of our operations room, who's been providing all the backbone of what is needed in Libya and the liaison with many other entities. And of course our media liaison officers, Sohail Nakhuda and Ed, and other members of the team that I have not mentioned. What I would like to stress is that I was under orders by the Prime Minister to enter Tripoli as quickly as possible to make sure that the stabilization effort works well. This was done with the permission and the support of the Foreign Ministry here in the UAE, and I would like to thank them very much for their understanding. Now that that part of the work is done, I'm back to my position as ambassador to try to serve the Libyan community here and to build up Libya-UAE relations as best as I can. We are all volunteers and we hope that we're doing an adequate job, but it is the Libyan community here that has enabled us and has supported us to do all this work. And I cannot say enough thanks to them and to all the Libyans in Libya itself. none of the stabilization work can be done without the Libyan people. It is the Libyans themselves who stabilize their own country, and all we try to do is to be catalysts and helpers and networking and coordinating agents. It's a great team. I'm humbly grateful and honored to have worked with them, and I feel that just as we declared day one of implementation of the stabilization plan, we are now declaring handover to the various ministries and to the executive team of all dimensions of stabilization. There will remain some dimensions in which maybe we can provide advice, and also a good chunk of work that's really more civil society work, from preparing for elections to transitional justice issues to human rights protection. These can be handled by various team members in their various capacities as members of various civil society associations and think tanks and academic positions and so on. So with these notes, I would like to bring these remarks to a close and open the floor for questions.